الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
إن الحمد لله الذي نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبد الله ورسوله أرسله الله تعالى بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله وكفى بالله شهيدا فصلى الله عليه وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وإن شر الأمور محدثاتها وإن كل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. قال الله عز وجل في كتابه الكريم بعد أن أقول أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إنهم فتية آمنوا بربهم وزدناهم هدى. يصلي ويسلم أن عقدة من لساني وقولي اللهم ثبتنا عند الموت بلا إله إلا الله اللهم اجعلنا من الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر آمين يا رب العالمين. First of all, I see a lot of people standing in the back and it's very cold outside, so make as much room as you can. Move in until all the space is clear, inshallah, so we can accommodate more people. There are elders standing in the back, and Allah tells us about ourselves, وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ. The believers are those who give other people preference over themselves, even if they are in difficulty, even if they're starving. So we should exhibit that in every opportunity we get, making room for somebody else to sit, accommodating, giving somebody else comfort. These are parts. This is every time you do that, you're living in ayah of the Quran. We will accept that from all of you. I had intention to give a certain khutbah today, but since I see a lot of young faces in the audience and school is out and there's a lot of kids here, I decided to change the subject of my khutbah and talk to these children. And by extension, inshallah ta'ala, the advice that Allah gives us, the counsel that He gives us is for everyone. So, what I want to start with is something remarkable Allah says about these people that we read about every Friday. Allah Azza wa Jal taught us through His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam to recite Surah Al-Kahf every Friday. And Surah Al-Kahf, of course, begins with a remarkable story of some young men. And I wanted to tell you some things about these young men that makes them special. Already the fact that Allah has talked about them in the Quran is an honor. And the fact that we recite their story and remember them every single time we recite the Quran is an honor beyond imagination. So Allah Azza wa Jalla has put them in a very high place. There are people that study their entire lives, they study the tafsir of the Quran. Scholars have been writing tafsir explanations of the Quran since the birth of this ummah. And all of them have been writing, when they come to the surah, they have been contemplating and writing and discussing and teaching the lessons learned from these young men. And it's particularly important that Allah called them young men. Allah said, إِنَّهُمْ فِتْيَةٌ. No doubt about it, they were young men. آمَنُوا بِرَبِّهِمْ. They were youth that believed in their master. So Allah didn't just describe their faith, He made it a point to mention their age. He made it a point to mention their age. And that's important. Because when you do a little bit of study about these young people, you learn that they were in a time where arguably they were not exposed to any prophets. They did not know any religion of Islam. They knew nothing. And they did not know anything about previous books. So they're living in a place where nobody believes in Allah, nobody believes in any prophets, they have no concept of anything. And from what we can tell, it seems that the place they lived, they practiced, or they lived in a kind of mythology, meaning the people believed in false gods like Zeus and Greek mythological figures, and that's what the official religion was. It also seems to be the case that these young people belonged to very wealthy families. So they weren't children of farmers or peasants or something like that. They were extremely wealthy young people that lived in a non-Muslim society. This is a story about young people who lived in a non-Muslim society, and they're very, very well off. And these friends, now you imagine when young people have money, and they have wealth, and they have fame, and on top of that they're living in a society where there's no such thing as halal and haram, there's no religion, there's no mention of Allah, there's no restrictions. You can imagine what young people are going to do with their life. What are they going to do if they have all the freedom in the world? What do young people do today when they have money and they have a car and they have a credit card and they, family's wealthy and or when they're sent off to college and there's no parental supervision and they can do whatever they want. So thousands of years ago, young people were the same as they are now. Don't imagine that we are living in terrible times of fitna and things are different. Human nature has always been human nature. Young men have always been young men. Young women have always been young women. Money has always been a source of corruption. Wealth and power have always been tempting things. So these young people have every reason to live a party life. That's what it is. But for some reason, these young men decide or discuss among themselves that there must be more to life than this. And they arrive at a conclusion. After discussing with each other, it seems, they come to a conclusion that there can only be one God. There can only be one ilah. And we're not going to worship anybody else. And just that, they don't know anything about halal haram yet, nothing. They just know that لَن نَدْعُوَ مِن دُونِهِ إِلَهًا. We're not going to call on any other God except Allah. That's it. There has to be one. They can't be all these different figures and stories and idols, and we're not going to accept any of it. And because they came to that conclusion, they didn't share it with everyone. But the problem was, the governor of their city was holding a big festival. And part of the showing the honor to the king, they put idols in the middle of the city of their gods. And all the wealthy families and the elite families, they have to come and show their respect to these gods. And they bring their family with them. So they brought these young men from that family, so they brought them with them. And they refused to show their respect to these idols. And they publicly said in front of everybody, we're not going to call on any God besides Allah. They can only be one God. This makes no sense. And if we said this, لَقَدْ قُلْنَا إِذًا شَطَطًا, we'd be saying something ridiculous. So they offended everyone by just saying that they believe in Allah alone. And nowadays you have something called freedom of religion. Somebody's a Christian, somebody's a Hindu, somebody's a Buddhist, somebody's some other religion. It's okay, everybody's their own religion. Some of you work in an office, 10 different people, 10 different religions. No big deal. But back then, the religion of the king has to be the religion of everybody. And if you reject the religion of the king, it's like you gave up your citizenship. You have no rights anymore. You can even be executed. It's like saying, I don't believe in the Constitution, I don't want to be a citizen anymore. So when they publicly said, we don't believe in these gods, they are actually insulting the king. And they had to be held to trial. There was a trial held. And now all the elders, their families trying to tell them, don't be like this, you're getting us in trouble, you're embarrassing us. You're young, this is just a phase you're going through. And they're trying to, calm them down and be wise and let go of this idea that they only have to worship one God. They're putting that pressure on them. And then they're brought before all of society, and the king in front of them, And even then they speak out publicly. إِذْ قَامُوا فَقَالُوا رَبُّنَا رَبُّ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. When they came, they stood tall. All the pressure was on them. You people, what do you believe in? Basically, they're the Muslims of that time because they believe in Allah. And by being Muslim, they became strange and they became hated. And they became someone, why are you different from us? Why can't you be more like us? And it was offensive to everybody else that they're Muslim. And so for young people, it's important, you have to understand, there are a lot of young people here. When you go to school, you see somebody else dressed a certain way, all the kids are dressed a certain way, or they all have these kinds of shoes or that kind of a backpack or these kinds of clothes, and you're like, I want to have that too. You have some kids in your school have an iPhone, and you're like, I want an iPhone. I want what they have. Everybody else is playing a video game, you want to play the same video game. How come I don't get to play? Everybody else is playing Fortnite, I didn't get to play. Everybody else is going to a party, everybody else is going on a trip, you're like, I want to go too, I want to be like everyone else. I don't want to be made fun of. People are going to say I'm weird, I'm different. These young people are no different. Those of you that are teenagers in the audience, as young boys and girls become teenagers, they become very cautious and very aware of their appearance. Even as you walked into the masjid, you looked at yourself in every reflection. That just becomes your nature. What do people think of you? How do people perceive you? What do you look like? You want to look good. You want to appear good. You want to appear popular. You want to be with kids want to be next to the other kids in school that are more popular. They want to be next to them because then they'll feel safer. But these young men stood up to everybody and said, no, we don't want to be like anybody else. And they had every reason to fit in. By the way, if they didn't say this, their life would have been amazing. Money was there, partying was there, luxury was there, wealth was, everything was there. And they decided, no, we're not letting go of Allah. And when they held on to Allah, everybody turned against them. Everyone turned against them. And when everyone turned against them, maybe they should feel scared that, I don't know if people are going to have weird ideas about my religion and what are they going to think. And no, instead of being scared, they're the ones who stood up and said, you people, you're the ones doing wrong. You're the ones doing wrong. We're the ones that are standing by the truth. And so as a result of their speech, Allah Azza wa Jalla describes in the Quran that the king was so offended. He said, because you're members of a wealthy family, influential family, then we won't execute you right away. You should get the death penalty, but you won't get it right away. We'll give you a couple of days to think about it. Just a couple of days, come back, and then maybe you come to your senses. And at this time, all the pressure is on them to change what they just said. Apologize. Just apologize. And show some respect to these idols, these gods. Go back to the old religion. Even if you don't mean it, just fake it. And you won't be in trouble with it. And it's at that point that these young men ran away. And they went into hiding inside of a cave. Now I'm not going to dedicate this khutbah to tell you the story, because you are familiar with the story. But there are some lessons that I wanted to draw for myself and for all of you, especially the young people here. Allah Azza wa Jalla describes these people in such high terms. He put them in the Quran. He put these young people in the Quran. These people were not scholars. These people were not prophets. These people were not hugely knowledgeable. These people did not give speeches or long years of da'wah, nothing. What makes them amazing, so amazing, that Allah honors them in the Quran, is that number one, they were young, and they decided that they're going to live their life in the way Allah wants them to. They're going to commit themselves to one God, no matter who hates it, no matter who thinks they're strange, no matter even if they're going to get killed. It didn't matter. The truth matters. They committed themselves to the truth. Today, people say young people have a lot of pressure. A lot of people come to me, a lot of parents come to me, even in this tour of mine, and have said, how do we raise our children in a Western society? How do we raise them? There's so many bad influences. Our children can go this way or that way or the other way. Let me just take 2 minutes to talk to the parents. You and I'm a parent also, you and I have to understand something. Allah has taken control out of our hands. We control nothing. You don't control the wind blowing outside. You and I don't control when a leaf falls from a tree. You and I don't control the clouds in the sky, or when a drop of water comes from the sky. We control nothing. So let's first understand that we can never control what's going to happen with our children. We can't even control what's going to happen with our own body. We can't control what's going to happen with our own next heartbeat. We are not in control. So the fact that you and I have this idea somewhere in the back of our head that we can control the outcome for our children, we have to let that go. And if there were people much more qualified as parents than you and me, there were prophets who were parents. They were much better parents than you and I will ever be. Yaqub alayhi salam will be a much better father than you and I ever will be. And his sons disobeyed him. And they were Muslims. And they disobeyed him. And they gave him hell for years. For years. And he would cry and cry and cry. They would get angry at him. Instead of apologizing to him, they would get angry at him. They're the ones who killed or tried to kill Yusuf. They're the ones who took him away. And their father's crying, losing his eyesight, and they're yelling at their father. Taftaru tadhkuru Yusuf. Tallahi taftaru tadhkuru Yusuf. Hatta takuna haraban. You're going to keep mentioning Yusuf? Get over it already. And that's a prophet's sons. And he did not do anything wrong in raising his children. He did a great job raising his children. But at the end of the day, no human being can control another human being. And if you think you love your children, let me tell you, our Messenger ﷺ loved his ummah and loved even the Quraysh more than you will ever love your children. He loved the people that he was with. He had a love for humanity that you and I will never have. That we can't even come close to it. The kind of love, the kind of worry that he had for people. And yet Allah told him, لَسْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ بِمُسَيْطِرٍ. All you can do is remind you're not in control. You don't have control. So the first reminder I give myself and all of you, we can do our best. We can provide an environment. We can provide a kind of tarbiyah. We can provide a kind of thinking. Prepare our children. But at the end of the day, just like you and me, our parents could not control us, and that's the truth. Our parents could not control us. You won't control your children. It won't happen. But then what can we do? What can we do? We can hope to raise children like these young people in the cave. That's what we can do. And these children did not become amazing because of their parents, did they? They didn't become amazing because of a positive environment. As a matter of fact, these young, incredible men that we recite about in the Quran are born and raised and spent basically their entire life in a negative, un-Islamic, evil environment. So when you and I think what will save our children is an environment, the Quran is painting a different picture. An environment can help, and the environment doesn't save a human being. There's a world inside a human being, and there's a world outside a human being. The world outside the human being can be whatever. It can be good, it can be bad. The real difference will be what's happening inside. What's happening inside of the human being. These young men thought. They inquired. They became people who reached conclusions for themselves. When you tell your children, pray, 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 you're telling them and they don't even know why. They have no idea why. And when they don't know why, the moment they turn into teenagers and they get a choice for their own, they turn 16, 17, 18 years old, they stop praying. And then you say, we went to Islamic school. We took you to Sunday, Saturday school. We memorized so much Quran. We used to pray right next to you. Why are you not praying anymore? What happened to you? Somebody did some magic on you. Please, bring him to a sheikh and the sheikh will blow over his head. Or pat their head, and then they'll start praying again. That's not what happened. We never made them capable of thinking for themselves. If the only reason they were following this religion is because the parents told them to, that's not good enough, because that's the reason somebody else may be Christian. That's the reason somebody else may be Buddhist or Jewish or something else. Because their parents are. They told them. The moment the parents are gone, the religion is gone. The religion is gone. We have to now empower young people at a young age to be able to think for themselves. The Quran is constantly calling not for obedience. The Quran is first calling people to think. أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ Think, and think. How often do we have conversations with our children where we make them think about this religion? Why do we believe in Allah anyway? Why should we accept the Quran? Why is the Quran the perfect word of Allah? Why, if one day I am dead, why should I be able to tell my children, when I'm dead, what are you going to do? I won't tell you to pray. I won't tell you this is halal haram. I'll be gone. Then it's just you and Allah. Then how are you going to, why would you follow it? And I have to ask, sometimes I have to ask my boys and girls some of these hard questions. So if I'm dead and your mother's dead and your parents are gone, no family left, and you guys are on your own, why would you still pray? Why would you still pray? I ask them those hard questions. Why would you still follow and stay away from the bad things? Why, if you made a mistake, why would you still make tawbah? Why not just say, it's okay, it felt good, should do it again? Why not? Explain it to me. And those are hard questions. Sometimes I ask, when I meet with young people, I ask them these difficult questions. And sometimes I ask them anonymously. And sometimes when I say, does any kid have any questions, they don't say anything. They don't speak. But that doesn't mean they don't have questions in their head. They have, but they don't say it. So one time I did this experiment, I handed them pieces of paper and I said, just write down something that you don't understand about Islam. Write down something you don't understand about Islam, but don't write your name. And don't show anybody, just give me the paper. Nobody will know that it's your question. And the questions they had about Allah, about the Prophet, about the Quran, about the law of Allah, the questions they had are not any different from the questions that non-Muslims have. No difference between the questions that Muslim children had and the questions that non-Muslims have. But when you ask them openly, do you have any questions? What do they say? No, I don't have any questions. I'm fine. Because we are not engaging them in conversation. We're more interested in talking to them and less interested in hearing from them. We have to facilitate that conversation. So now I come back to our young. When Allah Azza wa Jalla described إِنَّهُمْ فِتْيَةٌ آمَنُوا بِرَبِّهِمْ, He's telling us something amazing. Look, the young men and women that are here, when you're at school, there's pressure on you. People do call you weird. People do make fun of your name. It happens. People think you're strange because you come from a Muslim country, or you're a different skin color, or your name is hard to pronounce for them. And sometimes a thought comes inside you, I should be more like everyone else. Why can't I be normal? Why can't I be like them? Why can't I just fit in? And when you start thinking like that, you start thinking the way they live, and the way they act, and the way they speak, and the things they enjoy are better, and what I have is worse. Because I want to have a better life, I should be more like them. And everybody wants to have a better life, so I should try to be more like them, because then it'll be better for me. But this is all because you haven't realized something. What Allah gave us, what Allah gave you and me, what Allah gave us in this religion is so powerful. It's so much better than anything else you'll ever find anywhere else. And I'll just spend these few minutes just describing that, because Allah, when He said about these people, إِنَّهُمْ فِتْيَةٌ آمَنُوا بِرَبِّهِمْ. That's the first key. These were young people that had faith. They really truly believed in their master. Once that iman is there, then their future is guaranteed by Allah. وَزِدْنَاهُمْ هُدًى. We increase them in guidance. The guidance will come. When iman is there, then the road doesn't get paved by the human being, the road is paved by Allah. The guided road is paved by Allah. So it's really the question of iman. What do we really, truly, truly believe? And so I want to remind you and myself of something that I personally experienced when I was your age, when I was younger. I went to the United States when I was 14, 15 years old. And this was the first time I was in America. And we couldn't afford to go to a private school, so I went to a public school. And when I went to a public school, I didn't speak much English. Everybody made fun of me. Everybody made fun of me. And I had only been in the Muslim world, in Muslim countries, and when your teacher calls you for a question in the class, you stand up and answer the question, out of respect for your teacher. I stood up in class when somebody asked me a question, the whole class started laughing at me, because that's not what you do in America. Everybody was making fun of me. And I realized then, I have to be like them. Otherwise I'll get destroyed. I better learn to talk like them. And when they use dirty words, I better learn to say the same words. And I did. I learned it. I better dress like them. I better listen to the same music they're listening to. I better hang out with these people and these people and these people. And I would be like them, and then when I would get close to home, because I'd walk home from school, when I get close to home, I'll change up a little bit of my clothes and fix myself, because to my parents I was someone else. And at school I was someone else. Because my parents can't accept that. So I had to be two different personalities. Two different worlds. And my parents had no idea. They had no clue. Until one day it all caught up to them. Until one day you can't pretend anymore. You have to decide which one you are. Right? You really do have to decide. But long story short, Allah gifted me. Allah gave me a very remarkable present. And He put a thought in me that I felt like I was a slave. I'll repeat that. I felt like I was a slave. I have to dress this way because I'm a slave to these people's fashion. I want to fit with them. I talk this way because I'm a slave. I want to be accepted by them. They have control over how I speak. I don't talk the way I actually am. I don't dress the way I actually am. I don't think the way I actually am. Because at the end of the day, either I'm a slave to wanting to be accepted, or I'm a slave to fashion, or I'm a slave to money. You're a slave to something. You're enslaved by something. And the thought that was implanted in me at that time through some friends was actually the only way you can be free is when you become a slave of Allah. The only way you'll be free. And once you really become a slave of Allah, nobody else's opinion matters. You stop caring what other people think. You're not trying to impress anyone anymore. You're just comfortable being who Allah made you. That's it. It's good enough. All the other people's opinions, all their judgments, the way they look at you, the way they make fun of you, it doesn't even affect you anymore. It's gone. Because the one who protects you has elevated you. And as a matter of fact, everything changes. Then, instead of feeling sorry that you can't be more like them, you start feeling sorry for them. You wish they had Allah. You wish they had what Allah has given you. These young people that were about to be killed, remember them? Everybody in town was feeling sad. These poor fools, they're going to be killed because of their beliefs. And they're feeling like these are losers. And those young people know that the only losers are everybody else. They're everybody else. They're the only winners. They're the only ones. And when the world turns against you, when time is against you, when society is against you, when the authorities are against you, and Allah is with you, then Allah can stop time. Then Allah can put you to sleep for hundreds of years. Then Allah can protect in ways you couldn't even imagine. Allah will protect. These people, all they did, they didn't want protection from anywhere else. They just wanted it from Allah. So you're going to have to ask yourself what kind of life you're going to live. Are you going to live a life where people's opinions are the most important thing? People's judgment is the most important thing. Or you're going to decide that Allah is the most important. Because Allah gives you what people will never give you. And I remind you, not just as the youth, I remind the adults now of this. It's not just a youth problem. It's every human being's problem. Allah Azza wa Jal has given us this incredible guidance, but you know what? Sometimes we don't follow that guidance because we think somebody will not like it. Your parents won't like it. Your family won't like it. Your friends won't like it. Your society won't like it. If I follow Allah's guidance, how am I going to buy a house? If I follow Allah's guidance, how am I going to save money? If I follow Allah's guidance and I don't spend this much money on this wedding and don't spend that money, what are people going to say? You didn't spend, you were cheap. If I don't follow, so sometimes following Allah's guidance means you have to hear other people's comments. And so many decisions in your family are made because you are slaves of other people's comments. You make so many bad decisions in your life because of other people's comments. Those people will not help you. The only thing they're good for is comments. That's all they're good for. When you're in trouble, they don't come to save you. When you're in trouble, then Allah saves you. When you're in need, Allah is the one who takes care of you. And yet, when it comes to influence, you're not influenced by me, I'm not influenced by Allah, we're influenced by people. And we have to let go of people. And if we are enslaved by the opinions of others as adults, then what do you think our children are going to do? Why do you think our children are going to be any different? It's just a different kind of people, different kind of influence for a different generation. But it's the same disease. It's the same problem. We haven't freed ourselves from the fear of people, and we haven't freed ourselves to only have fear of Allah Azza wa Jalla. So Allah says, فَلَا تَخْشَوْهُمْ وَخْشَوْنِي. Don't be afraid of them, be afraid of me. And once you can do that, once you experience that a little bit, it's a scary thing, it's not easy. If you can do it, it's the most liberating thing. It frees you from so much grief and so much sadness. Because now the only one you have to worry about is Allah. And Allah loves you more than anyone else will. Allah protects you like nobody else will. Allah will provide you like nobody else will. And all the fears that you have, the only one who can get rid of your fears and get rid of those dangers is Allah. So you're with the right party. You're on the right side. You know? And everybody else you place hopes in, you'll always be disappointed. And so this is something that, if we can internalize at an earlier age, and we instill in our children, because at the end of the day, you and I are not going to decide what kind of people they're going to be. They're going to have to decide that for themselves.